Hey everybody, it's Mad Master here. I'm doing a video today, and I'm really hesitant to do videos like this because it's kind of like, even though I know some people that do talk about this subject a lot in their lives because they're so affected by it, and they do advocate for it at least, and they do work, that's part of their career and stuff. So I'm not going to say that it's wrong that they do it, but it seems like the modern thing is to label yourself, is to talk about your problems, like and specifically this area, and that's mental health. And I really am hesitant to do a video about these matters as of late because I just rather not talk about that stuff. I don't find it interesting to talk about my problems. And granted, because when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, I talked about it to death. I identified as at first I did not, but I had so many problems that I identified as someone that had problems. And I think part of manifesting what you want in your life, quote unquote, not in the new age, version of that word necessarily, you focus on things that you're good at, focus on the positive. I know that channel is not really always that positive, but in general, as a trend in your life, you should do that. So I'm going to talk about this thing that I have without further ado, and that I've had for a long time, and I'm going to talk about it in depth in this video, and maybe another video, because I don't want these videos to be more than 10 minutes long on this subject. Maybe I'll do a sequel video. I just rather, because I have other shit to do too, in life. I mean, for one, I said I was finished with my album. Of course, I'm not done. There was one more recording of a guitar part that I realized I wanted to add, but it's mostly done. So I'm going to be doing that today as well as some other stuff. So this is the whole thing. When I was a kid, I had severe anxiety, depression, possibly OCD, because there was specifically a thing would happen to me and I would have panic attacks. I was scared of vomiting. And one of my best friends actually has the same compulsion or fear that they had. So at a certain point, I started fasting. Not in the way that I'm doing it now, the intermittent fasting. There was no reason. It's because I was scared that I would vomit. It was this deep fear. And I would not eat because I was scared of vomiting. And this happened. I almost went to hospital, or familial representations almost took me to the hospital. They wanted me to eat. So there's a problem growing up. Now, there were people in the household, and I'm not going to blame them for this whole thing that happened, who were of the new age spiritual variety, that basically they said life is a dream and there's kundalini and all this stuff. And, I buy into some of that stuff in certain ways, in certain respects. And they would talk about this stuff a lot. And I remember when I first had this episode, and it wasn't the puking thing. So I do these weird things, like I do this all the time. Well, I don't know why I did that. Maybe it's something when I was a baby or something happened, and maybe it soothed me, this weird soothing behavior. And I hate talking about this stuff because it's not very manly or macho, talking about this shit. But I'll talk about it. Fine. No, I don't care. It's toxic masculinity. I don't really care about that, but I just wanted to get this out there because I felt like expressing this, because it's coming up again where I get this feeling that it's going to happen and I get scared. Now, I will explain exactly what happened with these types of incidents in a second, or probably maybe a second video. So this first part, I was on a trip to Chicago with my father when I must have been about 10 years old or 11 years old or something like that. We were driving back because I live, about three hours away, because I was seeing my grandparents or whatever. And there was some talk about meditation with this person that was in the household, and I'm not lambasting him, and transcending your reality, and you start to have an you have an auto body experience at Matt Motors. No. So what happened was, you're supposed to like concentrate on something and like focus on something, and then you have this experience, and you're transcending reality, and the Eastern aspect of that. So I started staring at the headlights coming the other way, and all of a sudden I had this really fucked up feeling, like I was being pushed out of my body, forced, like there was a hand pulling me out of my body. It wasn't like a good feeling. Let's say there's, I've never done LSD, and this is why. These videos are why. Let's say people have a bad trip. This is like a bad trip. It was like a nightmare. I was like being pushed. I was like being pulled out of reality itself, and it was like peeling around me. And it's just for a split second, and then I have a panic attack as a result of that, and freak out and be like, ah! This is the first time that happened. I remember the exact moment. So, what they call it, and I'm not exactly sure how people can handle. Supposedly, people feel like this all the time. So there's some people called depersonalization, derealization disorder. And I don't know if it would be beyond panic disorder for me, or if I could label them myself as that. I do feel a sense of unreality under the surface all the time, but it's never like that bad as it gets with these panic attacks. And this is something that happened to me that first time, and then it was a while. For some reason, it was a while. And then, ironically, it was my dad again, because my parents were divorced, so I would see him on the weekend. I think it was in a movie theater. Maybe it was JFK. Actually, it's kind of funny. Movie JFK. I don't remember when this happened next, but I started to have these. I was doing the vomiting, panic, anxiety thing was still happening, but it was kind of transitioning, so to speak. Look at it. It was transition. Just every time I heard it. Okay, never mind about that. But about that word. So it's transitioning to this other thing, this depersonalization feeling, derealization. And like when I was like becoming a preteen, teenager. So I went to a movie theater, I had this thing happen, I walked out, went back in. I think I went back into JFK. Maybe another movie had happened. It happened in certain locations. So the really bad panic started to happen. I'm trying to remember all this, but when I'd get this fear of traveling, and I don't remember if it was with him that I went somewhere once and I started to have these feelings of being trapped, and it would happen in school. These panic attacks where I'd be like, I gotta get out of there because I'm gonna have one of these. I'm gonna have this episode. It was more the fear of the episode happening some of the time than the actual. Well, it was both. Sometimes, at least early on, it was both. Having these episodes and being afraid of the episodes, and of course, the episodes happened way less than the actual fear of the episode happening, and it would happen just in these really weird locations. Really weird things that would happen. And in high school, I got scared actually to leave my house a couple of times just to walk down the street. I had the severe agoraphobia and panic fear. I'd go to school, but I'd be fucking scared of going to certain classes, especially where it was like raised up or something where there was a lot of people around me. I was trapped. I felt trapped. This happened in algebra class, the infamous Jeffrey Dahmer teacher, where he called me the next Jeffrey Dahmer. I was drawing some naked chick with pentagram and blood, or read a Stephen King book and had a Misfit shirt on. All three things triggered him to say, "Oh, what do you have, the next Jeffrey Dahmer over here?" So this is what happened. I wouldn't go to that class. I was scared, and I was scared to leave the house for a couple weeks. But I would go. I would be fucking scared. I would be really freaked out. So that was probably the worst that it got. But then I had this weird fear because I don't know if I woke up a couple times where I had this, like in a bed that wasn't my own or something, and it would give me this weird fear of traveling. And I would have it. It was a couple of times where I sort of handled it, but it was really difficult. But it got worse, that part of it, if I was like sleeping somewhere else or sleeping at someone else's house or something. But the worst it's got, and I think it happened a couple of times, even, a couple hours away. But what would be weird is that if the further away I got from home, the worse it was. So if I traveled, 6 or 7 hours away, it'd be really bad. Or wherever, especially if I traveled really far away. So I'd have this, and normally I wouldn't have the panic attack, but I couldn't sleep, for hours, and finally got to sleep, and I was still afraid going to sleep that I would have one of these panic attacks or whatever you want to call these episodes. And it's made me, and relatives have moved far away, like even to Minnesota, where I was scared to have one of these episodes. I wouldn't go see them for 2 years or whatever until I was feeling a little bit better about this, and then I finally went to see him, or people that lived, even further away than that. So I did visit some friends, through the years, and this is a fear of this is almost like agoraphobia, fear of traveling kind of thing that I have, which has probably limited my success as a musician, or may in the future. Who knows? I think if I was on a tour bus, I'd have to go through that. Well, if there were like groupies and stuff, it'd probably make me feel more relaxed. But just being honest. So, and the alcohol. But if there were, I'm just being straight up clear. If there were like, let's just say, opportunities to feel relaxed, I would probably feel better about it. Some pair bonding, even if it's temporary pair bonding for a night. You know what I mean? If you know what I'm talking about. So. But anyways, this is like the start of that. So the first time I went on a trip by myself, I went across the country to Portland, Oregon to visit my friend. And I couldn't sleep for like 3 or 4 nights. And I stayed in and just was on the computer and just like, because it's this weird feeling. It's this weird, and I'm going to sound completely insane by the time the video is ending. It's like I'm going to fall off the earth or something. Like, I feel like I'm so far away. It's just this weird, like there's a flat earth, which I'm not a flat earth person, but it's like, I feel like this weird sensations, this vertigo, and it's hard for me to like deal with reality. Now, during the day, it's a little better. So I was able to like go out during the day, at least after a while, but during the night, I didn't go out at all. This happened more recently when I went on a trip for a, I'll just call it a relationship augmenting conference seminar. Well, it wasn't really, it was only a couple people, but relationship, personal relationship augmenting, just coughing a lot, thing that I did several years ago. And I went up to Minneapolis, and I could not sleep the first 2 nights at least. And I had a really hard time during the night, especially. I didn't go out to the bars during the night like you're supposed to do to be talked about certain things in the night, I'll just say. I don't really want to say but what I did. I spent way too much money on this whole thing, but I did up there. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I'll do a video in the future about what happened with that. So I had a hard time. So I have this thing where it's like, it's almost like an out of body experience, but it's like being like punched out of your body, but you're not really having an out of body experience, but you feel like everything's unreal and nothing is real. It's all like a video game or a movie or something, and you're stepping out of it in this, but it's not like in a good way. Oh yeah, man, I'm high. Wow, it's like a movie, man, you know, or something like that. Or, you know, it's not a good thing. It's not like when you're drinking, like, you're like, oh, wow, you know. It's not a good feeling. It's not a buzz. It's the opposite of a buzz. It's almost like, it's almost hard to describe. That's why I say a bad acid trip is probably maybe not close in a certain way, but it's kind of like a hard thing to describe to people. Now, the last time I really had one of these episodes was actually, ironically, on drugs. I was on edibles, and I flipped out for 6 hours straight, or 5 hours straight. Because originally what was supposed to happen was I was supposed to play this metalhead druggie that I played a role-playing game, and I went to my friend's house to do it. Still call him a friend, I don't care, we were having our differences, but and we weren't playing that particular, I don't know if this contributed to it or not, but we weren't playing that particular game. I was playing this young Republican from the 70s instead of the metalhead 80s character that did a lot of drugs. So I was high playing a Republican character. So it was a little messed up. But I was walking around my apartment, I was flipping out, just like, I was grabbing onto stuff. This is what I do. So I like grab onto stuff to know that it's real. Because I'm being pushed away from reality. That's how I feel. And I hate it. I hate that feeling. It's the worst feeling I've ever felt. I've felt some bad feelings. But this is like the scariest shit. It's scary. It's scarier than any horror movie. So, depersonalization, derealization disorder, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what I would call this, because I hear that people that have this disorder have it more often, or it's like part of their, what they feel all the time. I guess there is partly that with me. That's partly in my brain, but it's not as explicit as some people have. It's more manifests as anxiety about that feeling, or the panic attacks, whatever you want to call them themselves. But it's really inhibited my life. I'm buying a bunch of books about it. I'm trying to figure out what I can do about this, because I obviously want to travel. I might have to in the future, I mean, especially if I'm gonna move somewhere, that's a little different, because I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like if I'm alone and I move, I don't know, I have a lot of weird stuff in my head, and I don't know where it comes from exactly, all this stuff. But like if I was forced to move somewhere because the CBDC is being implemented, or what, the bugs in the pods or whatever, I don't know what I would do. I guess I would deal with it, because I'm more scared of that than having these attacks, I guess. Like the government out to get me. I don't know. But it does severely limit my life, and I have a really hard time with it. It's just, I've had a hard time with it since I was a kid, since about 10 years old when I first had one of these episodes, and I don't know what it is. I don't really have it too often. Like I said, the fear of having one is worse than having, or is not worse. It's worse having the episode. The fear of having one is more prevalent in my life, I should say. So the fear keeps me from a lot of stuff. There's other anxiety problems I have too. Well, I won't get into that in this video. This is the most prevalent part of my brain that influences these things, like with regards to certain things that I do. I mean, not to mention the other types of anxiety and panic. I did not cut my hair, it's just in a ponytail. By the way. So, and I'm not going to cut it. I decided probably not going to cut it. So anyways, I'm blabbing. But let me know if you like this video, and I talk about a lot of weird stuff on this channel. If you come across it, whatever, I just do my thing. When I mentioned my little excursion to Minneapolis for this relationship seminar, I'll explain what that is in the future. You'll see a video about that, because that was a train wreck too, but as a lot of things are in my life, but that's fine. Anyways, that's about all.